Yeah, brilliant idea. Let's make a video about why people shouldn't get into pen testing. What's going on, guys? It's Del here from DemSec, and yes, we're going to be discussing some of the reasons why you shouldn't get into pen testing. And don't get me wrong, this video isn't meant to actually put you off pen testing at all. I just thought it was quite a cool format to discuss some of the things which you may not have thought about if you're heading into a job in pen testing, and just to double check if you are actually, a good match for this. Let's just start off by completely discrediting this entire video by saying, of course, these are just my opinions. This is just stuff that has impacted me. Some of this will never impact you, and it may not even bother you, but I just thought I'd discuss some of the top reasons why a job in pen testing can be quite difficult. So let's just start off with myself. I'm about 3 years now into full-time pen testing. I do web app testing, internal infrastructure, phishing, a lot of programming. I just kind of try and get involved in as much as possible. And all the things I'm going to discuss are not by no means like a list of what you 100% need to have. Like I was saying before, these are all my personal opinions, and none of these are like, if you can't do this, then you're going to not do well in this job. It's completely different for everyone. So let's start off with number 5. We'll start quite light, and it's that you never stop learning. For some people, they may just want a job that they can just go into, sit in front of a computer, move numbers about on a spreadsheet, and just make ends meet. But in pen testing, you really do always keep learning, and I know that's true in a lot of jobs that you will learn stuff on the job. But in pen testing, you have to be absolutely on the ball, especially with different types of pen testing. And don't get me wrong, I know there's a lot of jobs where you'll be continuously learning stuff when you're actually there, and there's a lot of on-the-job learning, and it's the same way with pen testing. But there's also a lot of off-the-job learning where you've got to kind of have your finger on the pulse about what's going on in the industry to actually do your job well. For example, if something were to come out now on Sunday, when I'm recording this at 2 p.m, some vulnerability, on Monday, if I was heading on site, I've got to be looking for that vulnerability, because realistically, everything's going to be vulnerable to it, and I'm like the first kind of indication for a lot of these companies. A lot of them don't have any kind of internal security teams or anything like that, and if they're bringing someone in, a lot of the time we're the only security person who's looking at their infrastructure. So one benefit of this is every day is like a new challenge. You'll be constantly encountering things you've never seen before, and even now, every time I go on site, it is just like a blank slate. There'll be some stuff that's similar, and then there'll be some servers that you've never seen before, some software you've never seen before. You'll be researching as you kind of go along. There'll be stuff you'll be able to do without researching, and stuff that you'll kind of build experience in. But I'd be surprised if there's any pen tester who could hand on heart say that they go on site and never see anything new. So one kind of downside of always learning is kind of the professional qualifications bodies. And I won't mention any under fear of the wrath of whoever just stomping down on me right now. But I find a lot of their content is quite out of date. I know there's quite a few that have a lot of stuff on Solaris, and don't get me wrong, in financial organisations, Solaris is still a big thing. But day to day, I do not come across it very often, and some exams have a critical part which is all Solaris based. And a lot of these qualifications are kind of required for you to progress within your job. A lot of pen testing companies actually have like salary benefits attached to each of these, where you'll actually get a pay rise if you have certain qualifications. So there's definitely a benefit to doing them, but the content of them might not actually be that useful. And then there's also the chance that you're going to have to learn a lot of stuff you're not very interested in. At the moment, as I make this video, cloud security audits and reviewing AWS configurations is really big, and it's just not something I've ever been interested in. And may I have to learn it and do those as part of my job? It's quite likely. And that's kind of something that you've kind of got to make peace with, that there is going to be stuff that you have to learn that you're not very interested in. So number 4 is kind of related to this, and it's that you've got to commit your own time to actually learning all of this a lot of the time. I know there's quite a few companies that will dedicate some kind of work time for you learning this, but if you actually really want to get ahead and learn new things, especially anything that's kind of off to one side, like I'm sure there's a lot of companies where if you said, right now I want to learn how to do AWS security reviews, where they just dedicate you as much time as you needed. But if it's like, oh, I really want to learn Golang, even though there is actually a tangible benefit to learning that, because once you've got the idea of how the back end of a system works, it makes it a lot easier to attack via the front end. But in that case, if a company doesn't see the direct benefit, it's unlikely that they're going to dedicate the actual time during work hours to go ahead and learn that. So that's where you've got to be kind of willing and able to put in your own time. And I know a lot of people have a lot of responsibilities outside of work. They may have kids, they may have all that kind of stuff. And don't get me wrong, it may not be a benefit to everyone that you have all this time outside of work to keep learning stuff, but I think it's quite a pivotal point that you're always learning stuff outside of work. So number 3 is the stress related to the job, and I think pen testing is inherently quite a stressful job. At the end of the day, you are going to be attacking systems, and sometimes they're live, and with attacking any system, there's always risk. The stuff that we can't foresee, for example, there may be some particular config that you have where when we run an exploit, it causes the system to crash, and we couldn't have ever seen that that was going to happen. And even though the companies have always signed an authorization form which explains that there are risks associated with this, we'll try not to do any of that. It always happens, and the response is never a happy one. I actually have a story related to this. I was doing a web application test, and I was exploiting a SQL injection vulnerability. I was pulling things out of the database, and basically I just wanted to get enough where I could show the impact, where I could see, I think I was pulling down like the users table, and at some point during this I get a phone call saying, yeah, we've lost 2 years worth. No, they asked me why they're seeing so much traffic from me. I explain what they're doing, and then he just goes, yeah, we've lost 2 years worth of data. I'm like, that wasn't me. I've not been running any delete queries. I can, pull out a list of everything I've run. So they go off to try and work out what's going on. I'm beavering through as many requests as I can get my hands on. Luckily, I run everything through Burp, so it kind of automatically logs everything for me. So I'm just scrolling furiously, down arrow, just looking for anything that would show why their database was now deleting stuff. And after looking into the code, the customer had a look around it. It turns out for some reason they had this condition where if a particular ID was below or above a certain number, it changed the select into a delete query. And that's not something I could have ever, seen before testing it or trying to pull any files out of there. But it's the kind of crazy stuff that happens. And even though it isn't a retail job, it's still a customer-facing job. You're going to be working directly with customers, and you get all the ups and downs that come with that. Sometimes customers are brilliant, but sometimes, they may not get on with you as well. And that brings us nicely on to reason number 2, that you may not want to become a pen tester. And that is customers. Even though customers are completely essential to what we do, and we're always thankful for new customers, and we're always trying to please the customer at the end of the day. If they're not happy with the test, then we've not done a very good job. But sometimes the customer doesn't care about the job. Sometimes they've just been told by a boss of a boss of a boss that they need to order from us and get this thing done. And when they're not engaging with you, when they're not willing to listen to any of the advice you're trying to give, all they want is the report so they can pass it back up the chain, and they just don't care, then that can really, weigh on you, and you kind of stop caring about the test yourself. But that being said, every now and again you do, encounter a customer that you really jam with. There's loads of places I actually really like going to now because the customers are just nice, and it's just simple things like offering you a tea and coffee, checking in on you, kind of realizing that the first day of a pen test for a pen tester is like the first day of work. Every time you go in, it's a new place, you may not have met anyone, you're just trying to be as nice as possible, and if the customer isn't being very receptive, then that can be quite a downside. And the number one reason is kind of a culmination of everything I've just mentioned, and it's kind of the overall mental health impacts of all of this. And don't get me wrong, I'm not going to go too deep here, but a combination of all of these, especially with on-site work, being away from home is difficult. Expenses were a real pain point for me. Expenses seem like a good idea. Of course, you can spend your own money and you get it back, but if there's a long lead time there, then you could be without your own money for a long period of time. And a lot of people are probably screaming at the screen to get a credit card or whatever, but the idea of the idea of getting a credit card on behalf of a company, it's just never really gelled well with me. I think if a company is kind of demanding that you spend your own money, then, I don't know, I think there should be some facility for them to be able to provide it on their own credit rather than me having to use my credit to fund their jobs. And don't get me wrong, I know expenses are such a common thing and they happen everywhere, but for me, being 500, 800, even up to £1,000 in the hole every month just ends up in this vicious cycle where I'm having to use whatever facilities I can, borrow money just to keep myself afloat, but then you've got to pay that money back, so you're not actually ahead in anywhere when you get your own money back. And then if you go back on site again, then you can see how this kind of gets you in this cycle. And also, when I was mentioning the stress before, another reason is the reports. reports can take up a lot of time, and sometimes there isn't enough time put in the diary for you to actually do a report, and that's, not something that could be foreseen. You could go on site and everyone's expecting it to be quite secure, and then you end up with a 60 page 60 page plus 60 finding report, which takes a lot longer than you were initially expecting. But that's the kind of thing that can weigh on you. If you know you need to be on site on Monday and a report that from Friday isn't finished, so suddenly I'm like, right, I need to do my weekend. Oh, but then I've got financial troubles because I'm however many pounds in the hole from expenses, then it can all kind of build up and weigh on your mind. And this is just something that you kind of just got to find your own ways to deal with. Be that moving to a different company where you've got a better balance of work and life, or you don't do as much on site work, or, getting a credit card if that does solve it. And, being away from home is a big one. Even though a lot of the time you have control over the hotel as long as it's within a certain price range, just being at home at all isn't the best. I do actually plan on making a video on the stuff I take on site with me if I'm staying in a hotel, the kind of stuff that just keeps your head from going bang. Just simple things like I've got a Fire TV stick in my bag, and that can help find a way to put it into the back of the TV and watch whatever you want instead of whatever crap is on TV. But that's going to be about it for this video. In no way was this meant to put anyone off pen testing. I just thought it was a bit of food for thought for those who are trying to get into pen testing, the kind of stuff that may well be expected of you, the kind of stuff that you may well encounter. And for a few people, I know they're going to be listening to all of this and think, oh, no problem, I can walk into this job and it's not going to bother me at all. And if that is you, then congratulations, I'm really happy for you. But these are reasons that I think that this job can be quite difficult. It can be quite draining mentally, physically, emotionally, whatever. But I want to hear what you guys think. What are your pain points? If there's any pen testers out there watching this video, what are your pain points with your day-to-day work? Anything that you get, advise someone who wanted to get into pen testing? Not necessarily to put them off, but things just, food for thought. That's what I'm kind of aiming for here. But that being said, any questions or comments, leave them below. If there's anything that you're particularly concerned about as well, even if you just want to ask if you really need to know about something, leave all that down below. But yeah, once again, thank you for watching this video. I hope it wasn't all too negative. I hope there is some positives to take from this. It is meant to be quite a positive video, but it kind of just trailed off at the end there. But yeah, thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye bye.